And like, okay, yep. And I just have to hit okay. Okay, so meeting is being recorded. Hello. I know it's the end of the school year, so a lot of you will probably be watching this recorded. Many of you have been with me throughout this year. So this is the end, kind of the wrap up of our nutrition series. We have really covered some good topics this year, some new ones related to nutrition and mental health. We really covered recovery a lot. So, any of the ones that you did not watch of the nutrition series, including a lot of people tonight who are off doing other things, feel free to look that up. I think Joe keeps them on the YouTube, Shattuck-St. Mary YouTube site. So, they're there for you guys always, and you never know what your big thing needs to be. So, this topic definitely included in this. So, off-season nutrition goals and gains. And I know that everybody's off season is different. I always put this one out there. Just some people do have an on season, and some people never have an off season in their sports. But traditionally, the summer is either off season or lighter training, lighter competition. So we're just going to talk about sort of insights and things that you want to consider, and then also some resources that are out there for you as takeaways. And as always, we're here for you during the summer as well. So this is Jenna and I. We're the co-founders of A4 Health, and we are registered dietitians. We've both worked in sport for a really long time. So if you don't know who we are, here's just a little bit about us. Jenna's still working because the Minnesota Timberwolves are in the playoffs, and the Wild and the Sharks are not. So we don't, the Wild is done now and the Sharks were done. So we just go into off-season mode, where I've spent a lot of time with some of our athletes and some of our development athletes talking about what that can look like to help them get to the next level. I also work with the United States Performance Center, which is Olympic athletes. So what are we going to discuss? I want to talk about what are the top goals for off season or lower competition season, how to match goals with nutrition planning. We'll talk about snacks and fueling suggestions, and then the summer fueling guide resource. So we'll probably go through this somewhat quickly today since we got smaller attendance, but obviously ask questions at the end as you think about it. So goals for off-season fueling. This is so personal, and this is why, feel free. I've got my contact information at the end of this. This is why reaching out. Every time I talk to an athlete, there's always something different that they're looking for. But truly, this little green box here says it. With the grind of the season over or less competition, it really is the perfect time to focus on eating habits and changes in body composition, whatever they need to be. So some of it's gaining weight. All of you are still in massive growth mode, right? So you're in adolescence where the gains are happening, and the changes are happening on a pretty rapid basis. So maybe it is to gain weight in general, but mostly we always like to do it with lean body mass or muscle mass. Maybe it's to lose weight or to change the body composition to more lean mass. Maybe happy with the weight, but you'd like to see more muscle mass within that weight. Injury recovery. So maybe that's something with the wear and tear of a season. If you're just coming off of your competitive season, you may have some injury or just wear and tear where your body really just needs to rest and recover. And even though you're young, inflammation's a real thing. And so, what can that look like for your off-season nutrition? Maybe some of you are having to have surgery. I hope not, but if so, what does that look like to make sure that you get back into the action as quick as possible? And obviously, I'm biased, but it's true. Nutrition is a high driver to how fast you can recover from injury or surgery. Maybe it's digestive health. Maybe you have been away from home for a long time and eating habits really change if you're not at home eating consistently. So your digestive health might be challenged. Maybe just the stress and fatigue of everything. Mental health is something that you want to work on, and nutrition's obviously foundational in that too. Maybe you're trying new fueling strategies. Maybe you want to play with things a little bit. I spent a good chunk of my day talking to endurance athletes because this is a big season for triathletes. And so I work with a lot of triathletes and endurance runners. So when they're in their off season, they're always trying new fueling strategies and new supplements, different hydration methods, and then just new foods in general. And I always say with young athletes, this is the prime time on learning how to cook, right? So real foods is always the best way to go. There's lots of marketing out there that's going to tell you this supplement, that supplement is all you need to take to do the next thing. But really, we do know that real whole foods are the best fuel source, and we use supplements to supplement after that point. So maybe this is what you're going to do this year, this summer, is learn how to cook some new recipes and just learn more about nutrition in general. But hold on. But define your goals. So I think when we talk about off-season nutrition, the biggest thing you can do is take a step back and write it down or put it in your mental note or put it in your phone like I do. Be specific and then build on it, right? So would your goal be, I know I'm not hydrating well. I need to figure out how to drink more water, include electrolytes that I like. Maybe it's I don't eat breakfast or I don't eat a breakfast with protein daily. And how would my performance change? How would my body composition change if I did that? Maybe it's I need to start figuring out recovery snacks like after training. And I think especially in the summer, if you're training in a different way, or maybe you have 2 days where you got to dry land in the morning and then you do your activity after, having those recovery snacks in between is vital. And sometimes there's a big time difference between when you do your training session and when you get back to where you're living to get that refueling in there. We really want to close that gap. So maybe that's something that you're looking into. Maybe it's trying not to. I talk to my hockey players all the time about this. A lot of them, once the season's over, they give themselves a margin to kind of go off the rails a little bit on nutrition, but we try to keep that real tight. And I spend time with them talking about how big is that margin because it's really difficult if you don't follow good eating habits to go back into them, right? So yes, once your season's over, maybe you want to have some more of your fun food, but really trying to avoid fast food, ultra processed food. Maybe that's a goal for you to not go too off the rails when you go into your off season. Maybe it's a time to explore safe supplements, that could support your goals. Maybe you've never taken a supplement, even like I always talk about vitamin D supplements and how important they are. That's just a good basic one, especially in Minnesota or wherever else you live. Now, the summer, obviously, we can get more sunshine, but there's other supplements too that you might be interested in trying and see how that helps your metabolism or your energy and overall performance. But practice nutrition timing, maybe that's your goal. Like, oh, I've never really thought about nutrition timing and actually logging your intake. So if that's something that stresses you out to log your intake, don't do it. But for those that where it doesn't, you get to see once you look back at your logs, oh, on this day when I met my nutrition goals, this is how my performance was, or I was under my nutrition goals, and boy, this is what happened. This is how it affected my training. So I say in the off season, it's not magical. You can't just gain lean body mass because you want to. You've obviously got to put in the work. And some of those other things, whether it's digestive health or mental health, those all relate back to what your diet looks like, right? So maybe it's your sleep. I didn't put that one on there, but we talked about sleep hygiene earlier in the year and how to have better sleep. Nutrition is foundationally important in that. So when you look back at your log of your habits, how is that eating affecting all of those things, your digestive health, your mental health, your sleep, and then ultimately your body composition goals? So let's say making gains, so weight gain and lean body mass gain is your goal, right? So how do we approach that? So with any athlete, and again, obviously feel free to reach out to me this summer if you want to connect on that. But gaining weight too quickly can often lead to excess fat mass versus muscle mass, right? So if the goal is to gain weight, and it depends on your position, right? If I talk to football players, it's kind of a balance. It depends on their position because sometimes just overall weight gain works. But for most people, we want to gain weight in the right way and we want it to be in muscle mass. So we do need to focus on getting extra calories, but to do it in a stepwise fashion. So we're not just gaining weight instead of gaining muscle. So focus on real foods, obviously, to increase calories, so not just empty calorie junk food. I often see that with some athletes, like, oh, I need to gain weight, so I'm going to just eat 12 chocolate chip cookies. Well, that's ultimately not going to help you with gain. So you'll gain some weight, but it's really low in protein, high in sugar. None of those things are really going to help you gain that muscle mass that you need. So one of the other things too that I talk to athletes about is how often they have to eat if they want to gain weight, because you're still growing too. So you're in that the adolescent phase. Male athletes especially, there's exponential growth that happens in adolescence, and this is the time that you can really make those gains. But it's a lot harder because you're growing, and so you're taking all that energy to do that. So it's harder to actually then also grow muscle and lean body mass when some of that energy is being used for growth in general. So you have to eat often, every 2 to 3 hours. And I'm working with an athlete right now. He's a rower and he is trying to gain weight. And when I looked over his diet at first, it was woefully under in calories. And he just said, well, I don't like feeling full. And so we worked through the process about it's hard to eat when you're not hungry. So we kind of tweaked what his diet looked like. He was eating a lot of fiber, which fiber is healthy, but it also makes you feel fuller longer. So then we reworked it and worked in getting more protein in first so that we could have those things that build muscle mass. But you have to eat more than you want to if you're trying to gain weight. And you do have to eat sometimes even when you're full. So it's counterintuitive to what we tell everybody else to do. And once you're not being a growing young athlete anymore, you'll have to switch it too. But you do have to eat often. And you definitely have to include like 20 plus grams of protein at meals. I say 20 plus because that's like the bottom number. Especially if you want to gain weight, we're probably talking 40 to 50 grams of protein at meals and maybe 10 to 20 grams of protein at snacks at minimum. So those are the ranges. And so also if you're not tracking your food, if you're not tracking your food, you're not going to know if you're hitting these targets or not. So these are real things if you're trying to gain weight, and obviously include high calorie real food, beverages, and smoothies to bump up your daily nutrition. So if you're not a smoothie drinker for whatever reason, try to be one, just because if you are trying to gain weight, this is a great way to just power pack some nutrients and calories into a condensed container. This is where you can put protein powders in, so you can bump that up easily. You can put collagen peptides in, which is also protein, but it can help with your joints and ligaments, keeping those healthy. And then you can also put fruit and spinach if you want to. I always say you could eat spinach in other ways, but if you look at the 12 nutrient-dense high-calorie foods, those are all real food. The canned coconut milk, which is over here, is definitely full of calories. You can use that to make overnight oats. And again, if you've never done these things, this again, off season, summer, this is when to start playing with some recipes that are out there. The resources are endless on the internet. So whether it's Instagram and you're looking to follow people who do high calorie, high protein recipes, that's a great way to get ideas. But overnight oats with some canned coconut milk. I love including avocado in just about every smoothie for my athletes who are trying to gain weight. It's a healthy way to add calories and extra fat. And if you've got enough flavor with other things in there, you'll have no idea that the avocado is in there. But anyway, and when you're talking about gaining weight too, you do want to make sure that you don't hold back on using nut butters if you don't have a nut allergy, using butter in general, or olive oil, avocado oil. These are all ways to add extra calories in to help you gain weight. And then for those who are looking to lean out, my bullet point over here, number one, I always say, so if you're trying to lean out over the summer, you're still growing in developing in many ways. So this isn't the time to go on really strict diets because underfueling is not the goal. And there's no prize for that as it undermines your performance. So because you're still growing, and you don't want to lose muscle mass, you've got to be really careful. It's just about leaning out literally means that. It means changing your body composition, decreasing body fat percentage, and either maintaining or increasing muscle mass, lean body mass. One strategy to this is have your biggest meals towards the beginning of the day. If you're not a breakfast eater, at least eat something though. This is great for your metabolism. It can be as simple as a hard-boiled egg and a piece of fruit, but just something to keep that energy level up, that metabolism up. But if you are trying to lean out, it really is about having bigger, healthier meals at the beginning of the day and then not as heavy and calorie laden at the end of the day, especially if it's not great for sleep either. So less snacking and avoiding late night mindless eating. That's also one key goal you could put out there if you're trying to lean out. But still continue to eat often, every 3 to 4 hours. Just be mindful of portions, right? So if your goal is to lean out, just be mindful of portions. And what does that look like then? So include lean protein and fiber at every meal, whether it's Greek yogurt, berries, cottage cheese, veggies, eggs, and hummus. Again, the goal is not to underfuel. We don't want you to feel hungry. We want to have nutrient-dense foods. And so that's what it is. And fiber will help you feel fuller longer, which is great if you're trying to keep your portions under control. Leaning out also means avoiding sugary beverages with low nutrition and drink water with every meal. If you're not a water lover, figure out a way that you can make it more fun, whether it's sparkling water or add like a noon electrolyte tab into the water. You need electrolytes anyway, and it'll make your water taste better. Uh, and then focus on high quality carbs. So we don't want you to cut out carbs in general if you're trying to lean out, but just make sure they're not junky carbs, right? We don't need a lot of like pastries and desserts and things like that. White pastas, those things can undermine leaning out goals. I put this in every presentation because this is the core of it, right? So during the off season, you can really concentrate on making this happen. You are in control for the most part of your food. So wherever you may go, either getting involved in the shopping and the cooking of it, or really having a voice for what you would like to have wherever you're living during the summer. But this doesn't change. We need all of them. We need as much color as possible because they provide the micronutrients and the phytonutrients that help support your activity and decrease wear and tear, help with recovery when you add that in with protein, helps build your muscles and really if you're coming off a heavy off season, you need to decrease inflammation, even though you're young. And then obviously the fuel, you still need that fuel for the exercise. So the carbohydrates are key to that. So training days are interesting. This is a slide that's very similar to the one that we had for game day nutrition and how to eat to perform your best. Some of you actually have really grueling training schedules during the summer. So it's just as important to almost look at that as like game day nutrition and what you're doing there. Uh, so we've talked about this before, but it's always important to have a meal or a pre-training meal. If you have early morning practice, that's not going to happen. So I always talk about if you have really early morning practice, it's almost like having a mini breakfast before you go out. And, whether it's a bar and a meat stick, or again, a hard-boiled egg and a piece of fruit, even a smoothie, small smoothie, you can have that as you're going to your training. But if you've got some hours in between your training, then 2 to 3 hours prior, you really want to have kind of that performance plate that we always talk about, having a carbohydrate, a veggie, and a protein, at least 3 to 6 ounces of protein, and then drink that water, right? And then, either this is before or after, but if you have pre-training or pre-game snack, make sure that it's low in fat and fiber just because you don't want stomach upset. Again, drinking water with electrolytes. And then 30 minutes prior, you really want to get that stomach a little bit of rest. So really liquids only. This is where you can play around with it depending on what your training schedule is like. If you've never done a carbohydrate electrolyte mix together, there's lots out there, whether it's Tailwind or Scratch or Roctane, Goo. They all have carbohydrates and electrolytes in the packet. So when you dump it in the water, a shaker bottle, whatever, then you're getting some calories that you need for the training as well as the electrolytes. As always, here's some nice little snack ideas. you can be as basic as also having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that you bring with you for sometimes depending on when my activity is, I'm a runner. I'll have half of a sandwich before when I wake up, get a little coffee, have that. But if my run is too close to when I have to go, then I eat the rest of it when I get back. So Molly, our intern from the University of Minnesota, helped with some slides that follow this, but I'm gonna switch over to a resource in a little bit that's very specific on what you guys can focus on this summer for the off season. But this is also a good reminder. If you aren't a smoothie maker or you think you're sort of a half-hearted smoothie maker, this is kind of the formula for making a good smoothie, adding in uh, veggies if you want, or athletic greens is fine. Whether it works or not, there's so many ingredients in it, so sometimes it can cause stomach upset. I really think whole foods is better in this scenario. But yeah, what else are you adding in there? What kind of milks do you like? Or you could use juices and water if that's not the variety. But you can see how this all flows, right? Um, and and you don't have to add all of them, but these are things that you could play around with. There's a million recipes out there. We've got protein powder listed on here, but you also could add things like collagen peptides as well, and other supplements that mix in well into a smoothie. So here's some post-workout smoothies. This is one of my favorite things to recommend just because you can either have a shaker bottle that where you've blenderized it, but then you have it in a shaker bottle so you can shake it up again after. Sometimes you do want a little cooler pack to keep that smoothie cold, depending on where you're at. But this is just a great grab and go thing at the end. So if you want to make those off-season gains, you've got to fuel yourself right after you do that training, especially if you have two a days or more of training. So here's, our protein options. You can have peanut butter or any kind of nut butter, Greek yogurt, protein powders. You can have non-cow-based dairy as well if you want to use yogurts that way. Nut butters also go into this category. So just in case some people are like, "Ah, I don't like peanut butter, or I can't have it," just make sure it's a great way to add calories and protein. Protein powders too are wide and varied. It's not just whey protein. You could use egg white protein powder. You could use plant-based protein powders, but that's a way to really stack it. Collagen peptides, things like that. Carbs, we've got berries, bananas, oats, pineapple, mango. If you're not a good produce eater, like you don't really eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, this is a way to sneak it in. And again, trying to build in those healthy habits in the off season that you can bring back with you when you come back to school and you get back into your season. You've already got these habits and this routine and recipes that you like to use, right? So, uh, fluids, there's lots of different kinds that you can use, like we talked about. And then optional add-ins, right? Again, if you're trying to gain weight, avocados are a great thing to put in there. Chia seeds if you want more fiber, greens if you need more micronutrients. So this is what those recipes look like, and obviously this will be on YouTube and shared with you all, so you can look at them for longer than this. I love trying new smoothie recipes because I get bored with them pretty easy. I tend to lean very berry and I tend to lean on Greek yogurt, but there's so many different varieties out there. I do like the peanut butter plant or the peanut butter and like chocolate protein powder mix with banana. That's a pretty good one. You can also do green ones, throw in those kiwi. Kiwi is great, power packed with magnesium, which is also good for sleep and muscle relaxing. And then snack ideas. We give you lots of snack ideas, but this is the other thing. Snacks are also maybe a early morning thing because you have really early morning practice. So some of these things could turn into breakfast. They're not just snacks. So if you're like, oh, I trained too early, I don't feel like eating, eat something. And it's this plus this, trying to get a protein matched with a carb all the time because they function differently in how they feel performance and recovery. And if you're going to play around with supplements, then I'm definitely open to some questions around supplements. And if you play with trying out some new supplements this summer, make sure you ask these questions. Remember when we did the supplement talk, we talked about, is it tested? Is it third party tested? Is it NSF approved for sport? Or the other testing is informed sport. Make sure, again, we're getting into practice too in the off season of vetting and finding reliable supplements that we support our performance, but also don't get us into any trouble with banned substances that are in them. So we just, and that was in a full another talk where we talked about sites and resources to find out supplements that are approved or not approved through NSF or Informed Sport. The other question you have to ask though is it effective? And in the off season, this is the best time to try that out, right? There's research on it. Everybody knows how to use Chat GPT now, and then dive a little deeper past Chat GPT to find out if a supplement is effective or not. Has it been tested? Is it what you need as either a hybrid athlete or strength athlete or an endurance athlete? And then if all of those things, if it's tested, if it looks like it's got promise, try it out, see if it's effective or not, but always use a supplement to supplement uh, real food, healthy real food before that. And is it necessary? Can I eat the healthy real food or do other behaviors like sleep instead of taking energy supplements and caffeine all the time? So is it necessary or could I make dietary changes instead of relying on that? And so again, these are things to play with this summer. Get used to maybe learning how to meal prep or how to build performance plates, try new recipes, try mixing and matching. It always is the healthy combo is protein, starch, veg, and a healthy fat. And then different sauces to flavor, right? To give it a special, customized theme, whether it's, Mexican or Asian inspired, whatever. So here is the resource. I'm going to go to it in a second just so that you guys can see it. But Joe will be sending this out to you all. So this is our summer fueling guide, which has everything you need. It probably doesn't have everything you need. We might have oversold that, but it definitely has a lot of what you need for summer. And it'll guide you through your fueling this off season. So as always, this is my contact information. You guys can reach out to me at any time, and I'm happy to touch base with you this summer on your goals and give you some insight on how to reach them. Again, it's all individual, so what I just said here may not necessarily be exactly what your goal is. And I'm going to just show that resource here quickly so that you know what's on it. Easier said than done. So in this resource guide, we go through hydration, especially in the heat. For those of you who have outside activities, even if you don't have an outside activity, you're just outside more in the summer, so you're sweating. So you really have to concentrate more on making sure that your hydration status is where it needs to be. Protein goes through that kind of specific layout. We say 1.2 to 2.0 grams per kilogram of body weight. If you are trying to really gain lean body mass and muscle mass, you do want to push to the higher end. How are you going to know if you're reaching your goals? Well, you can log in using an app like MyFitnessPal or LifeSum or all the dozens, Count My Macros. You've got all of those different apps that are out there that you could use to help you with that. Carbs as always, we do give a range here on, simple carbohydrates before a workout and then complex carbohydrates, those slower digesting carbohydrates, what your goal should be. I love how we confuse you guys. We did kilograms for protein and we do pounds for carbs, but there you go. But it is the most important fuel for exercise. It is also something that we can tend to eat a lot of junky foods with, so you got to be careful. Fats, you know what? Really focus on the avocado, the nut seeds, the olive oils, salmon, grass-fed beef. If you need to gain weight, use those healthy fats in your cooking, add it to salads, spread on sandwiches and bagels, all of those things. And then fruits and vegetables. You know what? Especially in the summer, you get lots of good fresh But you can also buy frozen. Those work really great in smoothies. But mix up the colors, because the colors are the things that have the different phytonutrients in it, have the different performance enhancing things. Plus, also your palate and taste bud won't get bored. Now, we talk about performance plates all the time and what they look like, depending on whether you're low intensity, moderate intensity, or high intensity. And we do this for a reason. You guys are going to have some different training cycles over the summer. So know where you're at, so you know what portion of your plate needs to be at. And oftentimes we miss our goals, our nutrition goals for the summer, if we're not eating to match what our intensity or our training load is. Obviously, more workout snacks that you guys can look at. Supplement safety. I don't know what's going on here. Stop. Supplement safety. A lot of the things that I've already talked to you guys about. And that is the resource there, but Joe will be sending that out. And I know we have a really small group, so I don't know if there are any questions, but happy to answer any. And that could be from Joe and Molly as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions from anyone. You can put it in the chat too. Maybe not tonight. It's a small group. The sun is still shining out there in Minnesota. So, again, love sharing this information. Just know that Joe will be sending it all out, and all of the talks that we did this year. This is